A message for my people.
Nick Dad, baby. We the new label.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, son.
Now this the black sheep, sticking it to him. I need a crib
Like I'm Gatsby.
I
Need
need it in
it.
hand, just understand my
Pockets that deep.
with nothing to prove. I ain't got nothing to do, and they can't compete, and I got nothing to lose.
All right, before we're joined by our very special guest, one of our favorite people in sports media. Big ups to the members of the Patreon. We got Mazin, shouts to Jory, new member, pledging $10 American a month, baby. That's what we're talking about. You guys spend money on way worse. I know most of you, and I know it's way worse. Big ups to Mahul Patel, Abel Rezin, Ben Kotzian, Daniel Gibson, Christopher Velasquez, Derek Plades, Dylan Chadwick, Jerry Shapiro, Jordan Riley. Jordan Riley, thank you for the rainbow belts that you sent all the way from the UK for our jiu-jitsu coach. Mike Stevens, Nick Crummage, Thomas Robinson. Patreon.com/veterans minimum to support the show. And like I said, for $5 a month, 16 cents a day, it's the best bang for your buck in the sports betting space. My guest now, dude, I tell you this all the time, and I'm not joking when I say this. You know, I'm too New York. I'm too blunt. One of my favorite people in the space, man.
My man.
Let's go, baby.
Nick, love being on with you,
Let's
brother.
go. Dave Ross in the building. LGM, baby.
Let's go.
The Mets, they reeled me back.
Can you believe it? Like, if for long suffering New Yorkers like ourselves, right now, I was born in New York, and then everybody's like, "Well, wait a minute, you don't sound like a New Yorker." We moved down south when I was young, so I'm like totally Mason Dixon both sides, right? 10 years in New York, but I grew up a diehard Met fan because that's all we knew. I hated the Yankees, had to be the Mets, and so like Nick, when this is happening this year, I didn't see it coming. And I do have some tickets out there. I got a 60-1 on the Mets to win the pennant. I got 125-1 on the Mets to win the World Series. I'm putting this out there as a caveat. I did that when I saw them turning the corner a little bit in June and just thought if they could get in, they would be dangerous because they'd have Kodai Senga back. That
Yeah.
was my whole play. He comes back, out for the rest of the year. They've done this without Senga. That to me is the biggest surprise of all get out. Like Big Sev, Luis Severino, I think finally is earning his New York stripes on this side, not with the Yanks, but with the Mets now. And you've seen guys like Sean Manaea, even like guys like David Peterson in the rotation, who I think is kind of one of those try-hard guys. I don't know how good he is, but man, just give that dude the ball and he'll take it. And New York has to love this team because it's not the most talented team, right? But it's that hardworking kind of go to the ballpark and we don't care who we're playing. Just give us a shot and we're going to go beat you. I think that just New Yorkers love that.
Oh, dude, 100%. And also, like me, I think another cool story with this team, because I always tell people, like, I don't really cover baseball on the show. I'm not going to portray myself as a big baseball fan. I do follow the Mets. And, like, I do watch if they win or if they lose. You know, there's a lot of games going on, especially here on the West Coast. Oftentimes when they're playing, I'm usually training. Yeah. Right? I'm doing a lot of other shit. But, like, you know, Lindor, obviously, we know about that. I love Nimmo.
Nimmo's a stud.
Nimmo's so cool, man. And also, like, to your point, right? I think one thing that happens, not just with the Mets, but a team like the Mets, if you're rooting for a team year in, year out, sometimes they have a better roster. Yeah. And then they fall short. And then, like, I kind of live my life, Dave, under promise, over deliver.
There you go.
That's kind of how this team is.
It is. And the ironic thing is, Steve Cohen, the new, you know, I call him Uncle Steve. He's got all the purse strings there in New York.
This is Uncle Steve,
That's Uncle Stevie, right?
Hey,
but
make it rain.
And this is the year he didn't do that, right? He trades away Max Scherzer. You move on from Justin Verlander. You get rid of those big contracts. And then you go, well, how is this team going to get better? Well, they get Luis Angel Acuna coming in, and that's Ronald's little brother. And I was texting this out with my boys. We have a group text called Meet the Mess because we've been a mess for so long. That's instead of Mets. And I said, we won the trade. Like, we won the trade for Max Scherzer by going to get Acuna's little brother. And, like, those type of smart money moves for a guy that normally just overspends. I go, man, this is the team nobody expected. And sometimes that's when you get it, when you least expect it.
And, dude, you know what's funny? I know you've probably seen those memes of George Bush when he's talking to the kids the day that he found out about 9/11.
Yes.
But there's a funny meme last year, and it was like the guy talking to him, and it's like Scherzer and DeGrom are in the World Series.
Right.
And then,
Scherzer and DeGrom in the World Series.
yeah. But then he's like, is it with the Mets? And he's like, no, it's not. And then it's like the pain in his face. So I was like, yo, that's so poetic, right? Like DeGrom and Scherzer are not with the Mets and they go to the World Series.
And by the way, and I know people before they get on me, they're like, how can you say that the Mets won that trade? Because obviously Max, they go win a ring and all that.
Right.
That's great. But I'm saying long term,
Sure.
it wasn't going to happen in New York. I'm glad it happened for Max elsewhere. And I'm glad Verlander, I'm rooting for those guys. But for what the Mets had to do, and it wasn't like, this was just the last trade deadline. And I was bummed out as a Mets guy. I go, man, there goes our chances of winning. Little did I realize a year later is exactly when they turned the corner, almost a year after those trades in June and then into July this year. And they bought a little bit at the deadline, weren't massive deals, but just kind of small moves. And all of a sudden you go, this team's got a chance. I mean, if they can get by Milwaukee tomorrow and get out of there and play the Phillies, New York, Philadelphia.
Oh, bloodbath.
Holy, 90 I-95 is going to be insane.
Yeah.
So like I hope that just happens. And then if you can beat the Phillies, I mean, we'll see what would happen then in the NLCS. But that right there would be like, we won the year already.
For sure, dude. And also what you just said now about when trades go down and it's, all right, you get an immediate return right away, but then long term might not work out for you.
Yep.
I think a perfect example as we go into the NFL is look at the Rams and Lions.
No doubt.
Rams made the trade for Stafford. They win the Super Bowl right away. Everyone would make that move, right?
That's the goal, right?
However, now they don't have as many high assets, do the Rams. They did hit a home run with like Puka in the 5th round, right? Now he's like one of the best receivers.
Kyron Williams is a good pick.
Kyron Williams as well, later draft pick. But then you look at the Lions, one of the better teams in the NFL right now as we dive into our quarter season recap. They got all those draft picks. They got a franchise quarterback in Jared Goff who's coming off a perfect game.
How about that?
Yeah, that was crazy.
And he caught a touchdown pass.
Yeah, and he caught a touchdown pass, which is nuts. Last week, it was the Trust Me Play of the Week. So we're going to pat ourselves over there. Look, I know you like this. Look at that.
Queens, baby. Queens.
Got it.
I was going to say Queens Boulevard there from with Johnny John and the boys at Entourage.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I've watched Entourage 150 times start to finish. Dave, it's awesome to have you on, man. I want to discuss a little bit of a quarter season recap. Yeah. I sent you a little bit of an outline of the things I want to discuss. I have a bunch of futures on these that right now I'm very excited to be holding.
Love it.
I have Josh Allen at plus 850 for MVP.
Nice ticket.
I have Saquon Barkley. I know our buddy Matty bets.
Yeah, Matty's got a big bet.
Matty's got a big bet. That fucking bastard moved the line on me. We were at Circa together, Dave. We were at Circa together.
Matty was on with me.
Yeah.
And he brought the ticket on set. He had just made the wager and it moved the line right as he came on to my show.
I linked up with him that day about 2 hours later. And I was like, you bastard, you owe me the odds. He's like, yo, I'll take care of you. I was like, you're taking me to Barry's and you're paying for everything.
Yeah, he will.
But he was on the show and I was the one that was telling him. That's why if you ever notice the post that he makes, he always tags me and shouts me out.
Yeah.
So shout out to Matty, man.
Matty's the best.
I got Saquon I got him at 25-1, but we were giving him out at 40-1 when he first signed with Philly. So I have that one. I got Aiden Hutchinson at 11-1, defensive player of the year. So I love futures, dude. Futures are there. If I just bet futures, Dave, on our friendship, I'd be up.
Oh, ROI would be
9,000 units.
Okay.
Only futures.
I'm so glad you brought this up because this is something I think that doesn't get discussed enough in our space in sports gambling. Okay. I'm a big futures NFL guy. Now, where we might differ a little bit, I don't like to bet the voted on awards because I don't trust the voters to see what I'm seeing. Like, I think you guys have a great ticket in Saquon Barkley for Offensive Player of the Year. But when they get down to the brass tacks, if a non-quarterback were to win MVP, which seems ridiculous, then they probably give it to the next quarterback for Offensive Player of the Year, right? It shouldn't work that way, but that's the way these things kind of got to go. But what I do like, I've got a ton of futures, and we'll get to some of these teams that we like at the quarter poll here at 11-1s to win divisions, long shots that, I made these bets in March and April when these numbers come out. And I just think you can get really good value if you're okay with tying up your money for a large chunk of the year. And to me, I love it. I mean, again, I had Mets to make the playoffs, for instance, Major League Baseball. At the very beginning of the year, I didn't like their win total because Senga was out at the beginning of the year. And I said, well, I'll take a flyer at plus $1.85 for the Mets to make the playoffs. And it looked like a terrible bet for 2 months.
Yeah.
You just hold on to that ticket. And then it's like a stock. And then bam, once it starts to come in, and at the end of the year, I didn't. I could have hedged if I wanted to because they were in play, which is getting back to the NFL. You can hedge or try to find middles, even better, if you don't have to hedge, that you're going to get value at some of these tickets that you made in March, April at really good numbers if those teams are in position to cash, you're going to have ways to jump off and make sure you lock in profit.
I always tell people, do you play fantasy football?
I don't anymore, but I do. I did for years.
Aren't futures the same thing?
Absolutely.
Aren't you putting your money aside into pool? Granted, you're not paying sometimes. Like in my league, with some of my buddies, I used to do the league with my friends back home, 15-year league. It was like, oh, just pay before the playoffs. We all know that you're good for it. Your $300 will be fine. But it's kind of the same thing, right? You become a fan of the first round pick and the second round pick you got, and then the guy you pick off waiver wires. And it's the same thing. Like futures and fantasy football, the same thing. You're not going to get paid out until Christmas.
There you go.
And then, all right, you wait another 5 weeks until the awards happen or the Super Bowl happens. So I agree with you, man. I love futures. I do really well with futures. I'm on back-to-back offensive players of the year. I had Jefferson at 16-1, CMC last year 20-1. Now we have the Barkley. At the moment, he's the favorite. Let's start with that one.
Okay.
I want to start with that one. Everyone knows my allegiance to Saquon Barkley for offensive player of the year. He is the favorite at the moment at plus 450. However, I don't think he's the offensive player of the year.
Can I guess who I think you think it is?
Good.
Because I think it's with one of my future players. Do you think it's Sam Darnold?
No.
Ooh.
For offensive player of the year?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you can go MVP for Sam Darnold
Sure.
if you wanted to at this point. Okay, if it's not going to be right now, Saquon Barkley for offensive player of the year for you, it's a non-quarterback.
It's a non-quarterback, and I'll give you one more. He's a wide receiver.
Wide receiver. Who's been the best wide receiver so far? It's not JJ in Minnesota.
That's who it is.
You going with JJ?
And can I tell you why I made this joke on the Monday show? But as I dove into it even more, if I was Justin Jefferson and I was campaigning for me to be offensive player of the year, you know what I would say? Sam Darnold's an MVP candidate. That's why I'm the offensive player of the year, all right? The fact that this guy is undefeated, they're 4-0, and I'm going to tie two things into it. I think Sam Darnold right now through the first 4 weeks is the MVP in the league.
I agree with that.
And I can't believe that I'm saying this. This is a guy who's been on so many different teams. I got to see him in New York. He was supposed to be the chosen one, and then he gets ridden out of town. He goes to Carolina, gets on a winning streak, then loses his job, goes to San Francisco. He's bounced around. But, man, he's found a home. And I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. When they won that second game against the Texans, no, not the Texans, whoever they beat before week 2.
San Francisco.
When they beat San Francisco.
And they beat San Francisco.
Yeah, they dominated San Francisco. Something really telling. I'm a big body language guy, and I'm a big, do the people around you like you? Dude, when he walked into the locker room, one of our buddies, my friend Alan Sturck, one of his best friends that he worked with covers the Vikings, so I got it from his Twitter feed. They went ballistic when he walked in there. And they're like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, that means something to me.
And
man.
he's chill.
Yeah.
And they're going nuts.
Yes.
By the way, that's one of the tickets I have, futures. I took the Vikings at 11-1, and people were laughing at me, and I had this conversation all summer. And they're like, how can you back Sam Darnold? I said, well, look, I don't know that Sam Darnold is going to be what we've seen through the first 4 weeks. I couldn't sit here today and tell you that's what I saw coming. But I trusted KOC. Kevin O'Connell is one of those coaches, young head coaches, that other coaches respect. You can tell. You talk about respect. Sam Darnold. That's what they give KOC. And I knew when he said he couldn't wait to kind of go get this guy and get him out of San Francisco, where he was under Kyle Shanahan, another coach, offensive minded, that people respect. So they knew something was there, right? And then they go get J.J. McCarthy, and my play was, well, I got 2 quarterbacks. And I got a true quarterback guru in Kevin O'Connell, and a young guy that he thinks can play, and a guy that just has to be in the right situation that he knows can play. And that's Sam Darnold. We talk about situation. I think you illustrated it perfectly with Darnold. How many other quarterbacks have done that? Look at Baker Mayfield. Baker was almost out of the league. And then he went to Sean McVay. Remember the Christmas game against Denver a couple years ago? Resurrected his career. They didn't keep him, but they gave him another opportunity. And then all of a sudden he goes down to Tampa and he gets a new 3-year contract. And it looks like now I used to make him a punchline.
Sure.
Now I go.
Both of these guys. Darnold too, yeah.
I look at him now. I go, they're bettable quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They're trustable quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, it took years to get there. Geno Smith. How many jokes do we make about Geno Smith in New York?
Yeah.
Look at him now in Seattle. Right? It's sometimes it can be 7 years down the road, and all of a sudden quarterback's in the right situation with the knowledge. Hell, you can watch Tennessee Monday night in that awful game against Miami. Will Levis gets hurt. I hope he's okay. You put in Mason Rudolph, and the offense clicks. Yeah. That's not spectacular, But because he knows
Yeah.
what he's supposed to do, the checks at the line of scrimmage, he's calling out alignments. It's the stuff that we never talk about in sports media, sports gambling. That's what the coaches want. That's the baseline.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that as a young quarterback, you're not going to succeed. And that's why you see so many young quarterbacks fail.
Yeah, and think about same division with the Colts. Joe Flacco went in there. He's 12 of 12 on passes under 10 yards. Hey, who's open? Bam.
I knew my
check down.
Steeler bet was dead
Yeah.
when Richardson went out.
Oh, and especially Flacco, he's gone up against them all these years when he was with the Ravens.
I mean, think of that I'm betting against, because I bet on Miami and I bet on Pittsburgh this week and lost both of those wagers because I was betting against Anthony Richardson against the Steeler defense.
Yeah.
And I was betting against Will Levis
yeah.
to make more bonehead picks, which he did.
He did also, yeah.
Before he got hurt. So like the reads were there, and then you can't predict injuries. Those veteran quarterbacks, man, they are worth their weight in gold right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And also with Sam Darnold, 11 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, commands the offense, hasn't made no boneheaded mistakes, even though the second half of the Packers game, it
Got a little dicey.
you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is coming back,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's how it felt watching that. But again, man, look, it doesn't hurt that he has Addison. He has Justin Jefferson.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones also. They haven't gotten Hawkinson back. He should be coming back
Week
soon.
7, he's coming back.
He'll
Yep.
be back, so that's another threat there. He has good weapons around him, and sometimes that helps too. We talk about it on the show all the time. We've had C.J. Watson on. He was a 6-man with the Bulls,
Yeah.
bounced around in the
yeah.
NBA, and you know it's cool when you interview these athletes because you ask them about what you always think as a fan, right? And my take was always, we put so much pressure on these dudes. And honestly, kids, right? Like they're 18, 19, 22 years old. And you go to a shit program or organization, I should say, because program is more college lingo. But you go to a team like the Jets who were incompetent all these years. You go to a team like, you know, Cleveland, if you're Baker Mayfield, then it ends bad, but it's also the situation around you. And now you go to a Minnesota with a great offensive coach. You go to Tampa Bay where you got real weapons on the outside. Like that shit matters too, man.
I'll tell you this great point about that. I remember, I'll show my age a little bit. This is over a decade ago in Washington, D.C. My buddy Lorenzo Alexander, Bills Mafia, will remember Zoe, and he played in D.C. for the old Redskins for a number of years, went to the Raiders. And at this point, he was going to the Cardinals. He was leaving D.C. to go to Arizona Cardinals. So we get done with our interview on the set, and we're walking off, and we're boys. I'm like, Zoe, man, but like he's leaving D.C., and I'm getting ready to take a new job in Chicago. He's going to Arizona. I said, Zoe, man, it's been great all these years. I said, I wish he had a quarterback out there in Arizona. And he turns to me and he goes, what are you talking about, D? And I go, yeah, Carson Palmer. And he goes, no, we want to play for that guy.
Yeah.
And they went to the NFC title game.
I remember that
year.
Yeah.
And what it said to me, he didn't want the kid. They want the guy that's been through the fires, even though it's well past his best days in Cincinnati and he's in Arizona. That's who you're seeing around the NFL. They want to play for the Flaccos. They want to play for the Darnolds, even the Baker Mayfields, even the Geno Smiths, because these guys they've failed, they've persevered, and now they have educated. They're educated, and they can educate the other guys, the young kids, on these teams. And that's what a leader does. That's what a quarterback does. That's what a Tom Brady does, even in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are going to be taking all of their knowledge. It's not just the physical skill. It's knowing where you're supposed to be, where everybody's supposed to be, and making you accountable for where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there.
No, absolutely, man. And before I ask you what's been your worst take of the year,
Okay.
as far as what was your preseason prediction and then how it is now, I want to stay on this because the worst take I had was probably the Panthers winning the division, even though they're still one game back. And it was more so a play on fading all the other teams in the division as opposed to being pro Panthers. But dude, I had the Vikings at I think 4-13 because they just struck me as a team from hell.
Really?
Yeah, like Addison had the DUI issues.
Oh, yeah.
A coach, there was one of the coordinators, not coordinators, but someone in a prominent role had some DUI issues.
Yeah.
The third round pick died.
God, unbelievable.
Unfortunately, McCarthy gets hurt. This is all before the preseason.
And more defenders dropping like flies before the season
I'm
starts.
saying to myself, all right, you got to just chalk this up as this is the season for hell from the Vikings. And then it was, I'm high on the Packers. I'm high on the Lions. I'm kind of lukewarm how I felt about Chicago, but I'm like, hey, they made all these additions too if Caleb could be competent.
Right.
And then that was my worst take. And now I have the offensive player of the year and the quarterback as the MVP.
Dude, you're doing all right.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah.
those tickets in pocket. I think mine is I faded the Raiders. I played under 6.5, and I played adjusted win total under 5.5. And they've already got 2 wins. And what I didn't see is I still cannot believe
The Ravens.
the Ravens game.
You know who else can't?
Who?
50% of people that took them in week
The
2.
Survivor gone.
Oh my
Right.
goodness.
I mean, you have a 10-point lead
Yeah.
against Gardner Minshew. The funny thing is that game, I didn't bet that game. And the reason why I didn't is because Gardner had gone there last year. I think it was week 3, though.
They beat them with the Matt Gay field goal. I remember that. I was at Circa watching that.
And I
Yeah.
went, man, there's something weird. Gardner going back to Charm City in Baltimore, he seems to play well.
Yeah.
And it happened again. But you can't blow a
Why
10-point
didn't you
lead.
tell me this beforehand, dude? They were my Monday winner. I was holding a 9.5. I was holding an 8.5 earlier in the week. I mean, it was Monday winner. I was like, yo, you got to bet this. The line's going to close at like -10. It closed at 9.5. I was feeling good.
Yeah.
Had him in Survivor.
And then all the hell breaks loose.
Shitstorm.
It's amazing how they, like I always say, one of my favorite quotes of all time is, those who don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that's what I saw with the Gardner Minshew game.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like, people have already forgotten that was just last year
Oh.
that happened. And then bam, Gardner Minshew, new team, takes him right back. Fourth quarter collapse by the Ravens. So yeah, I'm worried. I'm going to sweat out that Raider play this year. I do think they're going to deal with Devontae Adams. We heard all the talk today. And that was also part of the handicap there, that I thought if it went south quickly, which it really has not with 2 wins. The Cleveland game, last week, that phantom holding call. And look, Sean Watson, that is not a holding call. I'm sorry. Where he throws the touchdown pass to Coop and that gets called back.
Oh, don't worry. I know exactly why I got called back.
Why?
Anytime touchdown Cooper, I had plus 200.
You know what else I had? I had the over. So 2016, missed field goal, missed extra point, you get a push.
Yeah.
And then that gets called back.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, we're sitting at 36.
Oh,
It's never
man.
going to get there.
Dave,
Never got there.
I'm a sucker for revenge games, and it was the first time that he played the Raiders.
Yes.
I'm watching that as I'm getting as I just got home. I'm watching that shit, and I'm like, fuck the flag. And the flag was late. Like the dude crossed
Totally
half.
late.
He
It was
crossed
so
half field.
late. And by the way, this is, and I talk about this all the time. This is what gamblers do.
It's
The
the
bad
best.
beats stick with, like, we're not talking about the rocking chair winners we had, say, over Detroit and Seattle on Monday night, which was one of my biggest plays of the weekend. I'm still on that Cleveland game, right? I can't, and I always, like, I have to do it too. You've got to remind yourself that you can have the right read, you can have a good play, and it might not win. So, like, you've got to remember that sometimes, that even good handicaps, good bets, they're not all going to get home. And they're going to be frustrating. And those are the most frustrating ones. Look, if I have a bad read on a game, I go, man, I can live with those, like, for whatever reason. It's those ones where you should have had it, it gets called back, you miss an extra point, you miss a field goal, something like that costs you. Those are the ones, as gamblers, that stick with you. We got to remember the wins too, people. We got to go glass half full. Can't always be glass half empty. And I fall into that trap too.
Phillip Rivers once fumbled a QB kneel on Monday Night Football against the Chiefs. I had a Chargers money line to close out a 8-leg parlay.
Oh my God.
And
Wait. He fumbled.
He fumbled the kneel down.
How do you?
It was Monday Night Football
How do you
against the
do that?
Chiefs. It
So-
might have been 2010. It might have been 2011. He fumbled, and I just remember saying to myself, "I don't think I'm ever gonna bet again." And then I bet the Thursday night game. But
Oh, by the way, you'll never forget that.
oh,
though.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
I literally think it's the worst bad beat I've ever had in football. He fumbled the kneel down. When you see a kneel down and you have that ticket, what are you doing? You're going right to the window.
It's already over.
He fumbled the kneel down, man. I want to go and look this up. I'm gonna have Dom clip this
Oh my.
at the 26-minute mark. I'm gonna have him clip this because
So
he
if-
fumbled the kneel down. And I
If you ever
remember.
have Phillip Rivers on the
I'm
show,
gonna be like, what the fuck happened? Bro,
he'll
what are we
remember it
doing?
too. He
Yeah.
will remember it. Phillip Rivers will not forget that. But that's what we're talking about. Those are the type of things that you could they're going to stick with you
Yeah.
as a gambler.
Especially when it's something so unlikely like
yeah.
that.
I will recount one very quickly. My buddy Tim Doyle played at Northwestern, does a great job in our space all across. He's at CBS Sports everywhere. Timmy and I worked together in Chicago. This was over a decade ago because Carmelo Anthony was still playing for the Knicks. It might have been 2014. It was the Trust the Process Sixers when they couldn't win anything.
Oh
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
a 13-leg parlay. It's getting ready to close in the NBA. And I laid the Knicks 13.5. They're up by 21. And I have to go on set to do the show. Now, it's not the kneel down because I think there's about 4 minutes to go in regulation. They're up 21. I get back. They won by 13. And then just to see that final score, because you're thinking it's going to be a winner, and you're literally on the air. And it's going to be I don't want to say life-changing, but it is a massive windfall coming your way.
13-leg parlay. It got to be a nice payout.
They pulled all the starters at the 4-minute mark. And Carmelo and the Knicks are rolling, right? Up 21. And then I looked, and the Knicks didn't score again. And it was garbage time. It was like free throws and just layups. And then you get beat at the, we get beat by half point. And there goes your ticket. Bye-bye. All gone. And the agonizing part was going back and watching how the final 4 minutes in the box score. Because I had to know. I'm like, what happened? They were just up 21 as I'm going on the air. And you get off the air and you realize that about 15 grand. Gone. It's just, for like it's like a $10 wager. So you're not losing anything. But, if it was today, 2024 me, I would have probably said, I can't go on the air right now. I got a hedge.
Right.
But back then,
It was, it's not totally.
Yeah. I mean, gambling, this space has changed so much in a decade.
Yeah. Let us know what's the worst bad bet
that
you've had. Bad beat, I should say.
You'll never forget them.
It's the best. It's the best and the worst. It's like these stories are fun to tell now. But at the time, don't talk to me for 3 months. I'm going to remember this shit.
That night was a rough night.
Let me ask you this. Give me a surprise team. So that kind of ties into what I said before we started going down memory lane of pain. What's like a team that either good or bad surprise, right? So mine was Minnesota. That I thought was going to be bad and ended up being good. And then my good that is fucking really bad, the only winless team in the league, is Jacksonville. I was so confident, and one of my favorite division bets was them. It was like plus 280 to win the South.
Yeah.
It was a fade on the hype of the Texans, and also, the Jaguars were 8-3 last year. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC. People forget that. And since then, I believe they're 1-10.
Yeah.
It's been bad. And I think what's even worse is you parlay the fact that Trevor Lawrence got paid, so now there's expectation on him. And I try to defend him because I've been going with this take. Let me ask you this. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I've been running with this take now that I'd rather have an A+ offensive line with a C+ quarterback than the other way around.
You just described the Minnesota Vikings. Their offensive line might be the best in football. I mean, that's how good they are. So I don't know how good, if like Sam now finally gets it. I think he is. And I think, again, O'Connell's helping.
Right.
But
definitely not an A+.
No.
Right.
That offensive line is paramount, right? So I'm with you. Like, the surprises to me are kind of negatives. One is Miami, that Tua, whatever you think about Tua's contract, and we all hope his health is fine, that they can't win without him. Now, this is the guy that some people are ready to throw off, out of Coral Gables or Miami and get, send him to a different
I believe
island.
the graphic they showed on SportsCenter after is either 1-9 or 1-10 without him.
So you tell me,
for as much shit as he gets,
there you go. Tell me his value.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
That's surprising to me. And Mike McDaniels is one of those guys down in Miami, and it's funny because I was in DC for a lot of years, and he was in DC when he was very young, and I was there when Kyle Shanahan was there, Sean McVay was there. They were all under Mike Shanahan. I don't remember Mike McDaniels. That's how obscure he was in the coaching staff, right? We knew Sean, and we knew certainly Kyle and the rest of these kind of prodigies to come. Look, I kind of look at it, and I'm a tough, you know how I am. I'm going to shoot it straight. Like, dude, you've got to be better as a coach if you're an offensive genius, that without Tua Tagovailoa, you look lost as a play caller. Like, you are not showing me what you can do without Tua Tagovailoa. What I learned about Kevin O'Connell last year is he went through how many quarterbacks? And they were almost still a playoff team last year after Kirk Cousins went out and blew out his Achilles. And he's like, just give me quarterbacks off the streets. Joshua Dobbs doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's figuring out ways to scheme up things to be at least competitive. This has been non-competitive. That surprises me a lot because they have so much offensive firepower that to look like you can't score against the Titans. You can't figure out a way to be competitive with, I know it's you got a new quarterback coming in, it feels like every other day. Well, that's the task.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what Kevin Stefanski did last year with Joe Flacco literally off his couch. So I don't want to hear the excuses of like, well, we don't have Tua. Well, Tua was a guy you didn't think was any good anyway, according to everybody down there. So how good are you as a head coach? I thought he was better. The other thing that kind of surprises me a little bit is I don't know how good San Francisco is. And I know, you beat the Patriots and you beat the Jets. If you did the football math, the Jets haven't beaten anybody yet that's good.
Yeah.
Right? So how good does that Monday night win, which we all thought was really good, week 1 against the Jets, and then you beat the Patriots? Great. Well, the Jets just beat the tar out of them too. when you played a real football team in Minnesota, you got beat pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to get that regression, but I'm not seeing it from the quarterback. Brock Purdy still looks like Brock Purdy.
No, and he's sixth when it comes to MVP, and I couldn't agree with you more because I wanted to go into the season. I said the Ravens weren't going to make the playoffs. That was like my hot take from the preview show. And I was telling the guys when we were filming it how I wanted to say that the Niners weren't going to also.
You might be right on that.
And I feel good because I gave out Seattle to win the division. I like that. New head coach theory, and they got some guys back that were kind of banged up towards the tail end of the year. And the Super Bowl hangover, it's hard to repeat, to go back, a lot of expectation. And then you started having the IU contract. You had Debo, you had Trent Williams, McCaffrey has been out. And then I've been calling Ayuk the fourth option from when he got paid. And I'm like, listen, man, get your money. But then you understand why Jamar Chase is benching and moaning when he's like, dog, he's making 30.
And he's not. I mean, dude, and they need you, Brandon.
Yeah.
I mean,
they need you now.
You don't know when you're going to get CMC back. And by the way, last time they got to the Super Bowl and lost, they didn't make the playoffs the next year. So that's a real thing for them. And you're seeing some of that. And age is undefeated. I mean, Trent Williams, I covered him in D.C.
Yeah.
And he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. I mean, that dude is unbelievable left tackle. But, he's getting older and he's getting injured. And, like, to me, outside of CMC, I think he's our most important offensive player. You already lost CMC. You better hope Big Trent can hang in there. Because if not, all of a sudden, the weapons that you have, they're getting muted a little bit. I don't know. Seattle is legit. Like, even losing to the Lions Monday night, they're good.
Yeah.
And I really like McDonald. And I like that coaching tree from the Harbaugh coaching tree. I think they've got something cooking there in Seattle. I'm a little surprised at Arizona. I thought they'd look a little bit better. And, boy, they just got by the Commanders last week.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other big surprise for me is Washington right now.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really see. Now, again, I was there for RG3 in 2012, his rookie year with Mike Shanahan. And they shocked. They did. It was a shock.
Yeah. No one expected that. Yeah.
Right? And I said all summer, we might get some of that with Daniels. And I do think that Cliff Kingsbury, again, show me your worth. This is showing you Cliff Kingsbury is an OC. Might not be a good head coach. Same thing with Brian Flores.
Yeah.
Maybe not a good head coach. Dude's an unbelievable defensive coordinator. So I think there are coaches that are better slotted. And that's why I was not going to fade Minnesota because of respect I have for Brian Flores as DC. And I do respect Cliff Kingsbury as an OC. And the other thing that was the tell for me is he interviewed for the Chicago job. And I don't know what happened inside of House Hall, if he was offered the job, if he turned it down, but it seems like he chose the DC gig when both offers apparently were on the table. What does that tell you? He'd rather have coached Jaden Daniels than the guy he coached at SC and Caleb Williams. I mean, to me, I read into a little bit of that. And so far, it's kind of bearing fruit there.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of back in the day, USC had this corner or a safety, and Pete Carroll didn't take him. He took Earl Thomas.
Tells you everything you need to know.
And then everyone was saying he was penciled in. Oh, he's going to take the USC guy. He had him there. He was like, no, I'm going to take Earl. Legion of Boom.
How'd that work?
Won a Super Bowl. That was the right decision, right?
Good, right?
I don't even remember who the other guy's name was.
Wow.
And then again, what Dave was just saying, let me get close on this one. I've been saying this for years. Some guys can't be Batman. Some dudes are phenomenal Robins as offensive coordinators. And then you see when they get head coaching jobs, they don't turn out. Kingsbury, Flores. Hell, I'll throw in Brian Dable. I think Brian Dable is an amazing offensive coordinator. Head coach, I don't know, bro. Some of the play calls, some of the decisions. Dave, when it's 4th and 1 and you're a team that's projected to win 5 games anyway, hey, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing, dude?
It's a great analogy, by the way. I hadn't heard you say that before. It's so true. And by the way, it's not a knock.
It's not. It's just that you're just better suited to be that. There's a lot more pressure and stress as the head coach. Maybe your role and you know the offense or you know the defense. You're better off doing that. And there's a lot of guys, man. There's
Bill Callahan.
I think, you know what? I think my Super Bowl pick was the Jets.
Yeah.
My number one red flag was Saleh.
Totally.
I think he's an amazing coordinator. As a head coach, I don't see it. It don't look right.
It doesn't look right. And I don't like the Salehs of the world, the McDaniels of the world. If they can't figure it out, like I always say, what do you do as a head coach? Like Jimmy Johnson is one of my favorite head coaches of all time when he's in Dallas. Jimmy didn't. He was a defensive coordinator back in the day, Oklahoma State, Miami Hurricanes, and all that. But he was a defensive-minded coach. But he wasn't calling plays in the defense.
Yeah.
So he was the ultimate overseer, and it worked because he delegated to like Norv Turner was running the offense, and Butch Davis for a while was running the defense, Dave Wannstedt and all those guys. And if they didn't do that, he got on their asses, right? But now I say you don't see that very often anymore. Like even Andy Reid, when Andy was trying to delegate to Eric Bieniemy, didn't really work. And you saw Mahomes and Bieniemy going at it, right? Andy had to take it back. I'll tell you this, Doug Peterson's going to lose his job in Jacksonville because Shad Khan, the owner, said this summer before the season began, they asked the owner, they said, who do you want to call plays? He goes, well, I like the guy that I made the head coach that won a Super Bowl. I'd like him to call the plays. And what the head coach say? No, I'm not going to call the plays.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you got to do something, man. Show me some action. And some of these coaches can't do it. So Peterson wants to be an overseer, and the owner wants you to call plays. What do you do as a coach? What do you do? Show me which side of the ball you're on. And by the way, if you're good at it, I'll cut you some slack.
Yeah.
I'll say, you know what? Maybe the team, like even Matt Eberflus, so I'm not a massive fan of, that defense is playing well. Matt Eberflus took over play calling duties last year when Alan Williams went out, and that defense got immensely better when he called plays as the head coach. That's a tangible for me. So like if you can do something on your side of the ball, if Robert Saleh is calling plays on defense, if that's really his unit, I'll give him some credit for that. But then you better delegate and make sure you got the right guy calling the offense.
On the offense, yeah. The thing that's the most concerning is when you're an offensive-minded head coach and your offense starts to suck and you're the hot coordinator coming in.
That's
and then the other way around, with the defense. Let me ask you this. Give me a bold take the rest of the way.
The Philadelphia Eagles are going to implode.
Ooh, come on, man. We got Saquon, bro.
Well, Saquon is going to be good, but I've been saying this to anybody.
By the way, Dave Ross is a Cowboys fan. Just
I've been saying this ever since we had Kellen Moore. Like, put it this way. When Kellen Moore left to go to the Chargers last year, everybody told me, man, Mike McCarthy's going to call plays in Dallas. It's going to be terrible. And, boy, the Chargers are going to just explode with Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And Kellen Moore.
Didn't.
Whole coaching staff wiped out in L.A., right? What did Mike McCarthy do? Had the best statistical year for Dak Prescott last year. But Dak's going to be up there in the MVP category again. The offense is going to be just fine. Kellen Moore, look, Devontae Smith's got to get healthy. A.J. Brown's got to get healthy. I'm giving them some slack. And he has utilized Saquon fine. But it does seem like sometimes you go, is he forgotten that he still has Saquon Barkley back there?
Yeah.
You've already felt that in games. And I really like Vic Fangio. But there's nobody on that defense that scares me. Nobody. Where's the team speed?
They got two white DBs, bro. One is pushing it. You have two. You're like, come on.
Where's the team speed?
Now we're getting crazy.
We got N'Kobe Dean trying to run down as a linebacker. Like, you got some guys. There's nobody in defense that scares you if you're playing Philadelphia. And Nick Sirianni is an overseer. It ain't going to work.
Yeah.
I think Doug Peterson probably will be the first guy fired. But I tell you, man, if it starts to go south in Philly, I wouldn't be surprised if Sirianni doesn't last the season. And I know that's normally not what they do, right? That's not normally you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, let them finish it out. But I think there are so many expectations. They might be unrealistic expectations, by the way, that if after the collapse last year where they hit that Titanic hit the iceberg late, and you can't be 10-1 and not win the division. I mean, it just doesn't happen in modern football, and that happened. Cowboys ran them down after Thanksgiving, right? So that collapse and starting off as kind of iffy as they are, and you've got two guys that could be head coaches in Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, I'd be very surprised if I wouldn't be that surprised, actually, if Sirianni doesn't make it through the regular season.
The thing that I would push back on is they need Smith and Brown out there.
Totally.
Because also Jalen Hurts plays way better. There was a meme I saw that said Jalen Hurts needs the Avengers in order for him to be that kind of guy. Because this would have been a game last week against Tampa Bay where, hey, man, you're making $250 million now. These are the games that you step up as a favorite on the road, and you win that. You still have Goddard. You still have Barkley. What happened to Dotson? Everyone was excited about Dotson coming over, a former first-round pick.
That should tell you something, though, when you get traded inside the division.
Yeah, they don't respect you.
Yeah.
I love that, man. That's a good take. Mine is, watch out for the Rams, dude.
What?
Watch out for the Rams. Listen.
They're like a MASH unit right now.
Listen, when they get cut back, after the bye week and they get Puka. Now, look, not both, but Cup could get traded potentially. I think, ready for this? DeAndre Hopkins, Cup, Tyreek Hill, and obviously we know about Devontae Adams. I think 2 of the 4 are going to be on different teams.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you're paying him $30+ million now, and all he's doing is catching screen passes.
Yeah.
And we had this funny but serious like little skit that we did a couple of shows ago about like, if I'm Miami, I'm calling to him and I'm like, yo, bro, do you think you're gonna retire? Because if you are, I think it should be fire sale. Get rid of Tyreek, get rid of Waddle, because to your point before, for all the people that hate Miami and Tua, you see what his value is. They're 1-9 without him or 1-10 without him. And you see that now Tyreek, the best deep threat in the NFL, is basically Danny Amendola on the Pats. And you're like, what the hell is going on? So with the Rams, dude, Stafford with those 2 guys.
Yeah.
If I'm getting the hook in any game, I'm taking them blindly. I don't care where they play. So if he could get those weapons, their schedule it's balanced, right? There's not a murderer's row. They do end 3 of the last 4 in division, but after week 8, they have a week 8 bye. They're expecting both guys back. There'll still be 10 games left in the season. They're 1-3 now. Give me 3-4. Go 2-1 over these next 2 weeks.
Interesting.
And I'm just saying, be careful with the Rams, man. There's a lot of firepower. They'll go up against anyone, those 2 guys. And the best thing is that the ball's going there and you ain't doing nothing about it.
I got to be honest with you, too. If we're looking for maybe in the futures market for a team that might upset the apple cart here, I'd look at the Colts now that Flacco's taken over. I can't believe I'm saying this. But we saw what happened last year in Cleveland when he got him to the postseason. And something feels off with Houston. I can't quite put my finger on it, but they could have very easily lost last week to the Jags. We saw what happened when they went up to Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota's had, I think, 2 of the more impressive wins, albeit at home.
Sure.
Against San Francisco and Houston. 2 teams that you could have said that's your Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, totally.
And those teams were non-competitive against Minnesota. So something feels a little bit off with them. And now here's the problem. Flacco can't move. So that offensive line is got to make sure he doesn't get hit. Richardson's running out of the pocket, getting clobbered. That's, like I keep saying, and I said it last year too, like I know he's young and he hadn't played enough football, and I know he's a massive dude. Andrew Luck couldn't take that pounding.
Yeah.
Cam Newton eventually couldn't take the pounding. So like this kid can't get through, forget a season, he can't get through 4 weeks.
Yeah, back-to-back years he's done after the 4th, not even the 4th game. He don't get to the 4th game.
So like I don't know if that's by design or what, but with Flacco, if that's offensive line issues, if you can keep Joe Flacco upright, he's going to get the ball out. It's one thing he's going to do. He's going to know where to put the football. I think that team could be a little bit feisty coming down the stretch. You probably get a pretty good number right now on them to be a playoff team in the AFC. And I think the AFC, now that Miami's down, the Jets don't look right. I don't think the Raiders or Broncos, even though the Broncos are playing better football, don't feel like they're playoff teams. I don't know what's happening with the Chargers and Herbert and his injuries. AFC, the underbelly of it, there's going to be some wild card spots there. I think the Colts could be in play at some good plus money.
I like it. Yeah, especially Joe Flacco. You saw him do it last year.
Yep.
And sometimes you just need a guy not to make mistakes.
Well, Nick, you know this. More games are lost than won.
Sure.
In the NFL.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Oh, yeah. Let's do some week 5 picks. All right, just a little disclaimer. We're making these picks on a Tuesday evening.
Okay.
Because of scheduling issues in the studio. Dave, are you familiar with how we break down the theme of these picks?
Give me an overview.
All right. So these are becoming like the hottest thing on the internet right now in the sports betting space. So we have Ursulita, which is the ugliest play on the board that you would make, right? Ursula is not the most attractive name, right?
Oh, so it's not an actual Ursula. It's just Ursula in general.
Yeah, Ursula in general. I think in 2022 it got voted as the ugliest name on the planet.
Wow.
So like Ursula is the ugliest play that you would make.
Can you imagine?
I bet this.
If you like met a girl and you're like, hey, I'm Nick, I'm Ursula. You cringe a little bit.
Yeah, it's like when you meet a girl named Karen now.
Yeah. My sister's Karen, by the way. My sister's old. Like we're old. Like it's Karen, she's grandfather. She's grandfathered in. It was pre-Karen.
Yeah. If you're born before like the 2000s, then you get the pass.
Man,
you get the pass.
Way before 2000.
So you have Ursula, you have Adriana. I think Adriana Lima is the hottest woman to ever live at one point in time. Greatest of all time. That's my GOAT. So Adriana is my favorite pick on the board.
Love it.
The toxic one is the one that just be careful, right?
Yeah.
She's attractive. She's at the bar. She's looking your way. But, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. You got to stay away. So we're not saying to play either side or play one side over the other. We're just saying just be careful. There's a lot of red flags.
Be a little bit nervy. Yeah.
In this economy, it's just a misprice. You don't understand it. And then trust me is a bet that you're going to make no matter what. Even if the greatest bettor of all time tells you they're taking the other side, you're putting your foot
Billy
down.
Walters says you play this. I'm going against
Going
Billy
against
Walters.
Billy. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm going to lead off with Ursula.
Okay.
It's the Jets plus 2.5
Oh my.
in London. So here's the thing, right?
Okay.
Everyone is talking about Sam Darnold, a lot of hype, Vikings playing well. They're going into London. London is always wacky. It's always chaotic. The biggest reason why I like the Jets in this spot is because everyone is raving about Brian Flores and the defense. He's done it to a lot of young, inexperienced quarterbacks. Rodgers been there, done that 3 times over. And I think this is a game where they stop the winning streak. I like them on the money line at plus 135, plus 2.5. Everyone is, it's the talk of the town theory kind of. Last year, I pointed out the talk of the town. I think Minnesota, like we said, offensive player of the year candidate, coach of the year, top of the division, top of the conference, MVP candidate. I like the Jets plus 2.5. And I know it's ugly because they just lost at home to the Broncos. That ties into the Ursulita thing. Go with the Jets 2.5.
Actually, I like the rationale there, and I think that's a good teaser play too. If you tease those Jets up to 8.5, I mean, yeah, they could get blown out if things go south. But I'm with you. I think that's going to be a really tight one possession type game, one score type game. I got an Ursula game for you.
Okay.
It's the ultimate Ursula quarterback.
Okay.
I like the G-men getting the points in the Pacific Northwest. Danny Dimes is a lightning rod. Everybody hates him. He's playing quiet as kept. He is playing much better football this year.
He is. And I love that you bring that up because I dump on him all the time, but it's one of those things where like I feel like I could dump on him because that's my team.
Yeah.
Right? It's like New York. I could shit on New York because I live there.
But nobody else can.
No one can. No, not on my watch kind of thing, right?
No, I actually you look inside the numbers against Commanders, who are now the talk of the town, right?
Right.
They were better than the Commanders in DC. Graham Gano gets hurt in pregame.
Yeah, and that's why they end up
They don't have
losing
a
the
kicker.
game.
They gotta go for 3. They score 3 touchdowns. Don't give up a touchdown and lose.
Yeah.
First time in NFL history when you scored.
We're breaking all the records.
How about
Dave.
that?
Yeah.
7 field goals. That kid beat you. Seattle short week, physical game against Detroit. You saw the defense for Seattle. It was not good against Detroit. I know they're going back home. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. And when you've got teams getting north of 5 points, look at those numbers this year, ATS. They're really good if you've been taking the points. I'm taking all those points with the Giants this week. I think they're live to win the game. I really do. I'm starting to believe that the differences in the NFC East from 1-3 New York to 3-1 Washington, they are as close as that game was week 2 in DC. I don't think there's a lot that really separates these 4 teams.
Okay. Interesting. I was probably going to stay away from that one because I like that. I like that Seattle lost on primetime. That's always, if I perceive you to be a good team, I like backing you the next week when you lose on primetime. Adriana for me, system play, auto play, whatever you want to call it. Bengals plus 3. If you can get a plus 3, I love it. They're at home. They're playing Baltimore. Massive win on Sunday Night Football primetime slot. And not that Baltimore isn't a good team. You can make the case that they should be 4-0 also. But I think that the Bengals, not that they figured it out because they were playing the Panthers. It's not Joe Burrow's fault, man. Joe Burrow could be the MVP candidate if they're 3-1 and not 1-3. I think the offense is playing well. The defense, sweet Lou, the second coolest thing to come out of Staten Island besides the Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
What's going on? We got to get it together. And this is a big game because it's in division. It's your first division game if you're the Bengals.
Yeah.
And you can pull to one game back because I think the Steelers are going to start to fade. I think, the Justin Fields, Russell Wilson thing, I think eventually it's going to start to fade a little bit. But I just love, it was my Monday winner to bet the Bengals plus 3 right away. And as I look more into it, I got to get the 3.
Like it. I like to play, and I'd like to see that division get a little bit more competitive, and that would go a long way if they could beat the Ravens on Sunday. My Adriana Lima play is, we talked about him earlier in the program. You're going to give me the Bucks at plus money against the ATL? Sign me up for that. Falcons should have lost last week, didn't score an offensive touchdown Had the Saints on the numbers, so that covered. Also lost some money line plays on it too. Saints are the better football team. They muff a punt. I don't know why we're fielding punts at the 3-yard line. Right now, the offense for the Falcons is not clicking at all, and their defense is okay.
Yeah,
but it's not great. I think there's certain coaches that for whatever reason just they feel like they don't get any talk or respect. Todd Bowles gets a lot of mine. Gets a lot of respect from me. So he's gone through with the Brady era, post Brady era, post Bruce Arians. I think he's done a really good job of kind of righting the ship, pun intended. I love them at plus money outright. I don't need the 1.5. They're going to beat the Falcons next week if the Falcons can't figure out their offense. And as much as I'm a Kirk Cousins guy, he's very immobile, as you can see coming off that injury. He looks older to me this year and just doesn't look like a guy that's shifty enough. Buck's going to get after you, man. Look at what they did with the Eagles last week. I don't see a whole lot of weapons outside of Bijan. Kyle Pitts has disappeared from this offense. I like the Buccaneers at plus money to win the game outright.
Yeah, I like that play, man. No more generational talent. We're not doing that.
Yeah,
no more Kyle Pitts generational. No more Bijan Robinson. Unless you're talking about Sofia Vergara, generational talent now. You know what I'm talking about, Dave?
Uh-huh.
In this economy for me,
Oh, man.
Garrett Wilson, anytime touchdown, plus 150.
Ooh.
A little, I'm not happy with my role. Why am I playing better with Zach Wilson as my quarterback?
Wow.
And Breece Hall is playing better with Zach Wilson. But now we got AR8 and it's not looking good. I think what's going to happen, and I hope this comes into fruition because I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to have a clip on deck if it happens. 65-yard slant route to the house.
Oh.
The blitz coming from Flores.
Oh, it's coming.
You know,
Flores is-
Rodgers, that's why I also like Rodgers.
gonna be
Rodgers
reading
didn't
that.
see that. Hey, Garrett Wilson, slant, break a tackle, housing it in London. Plus 150, anytime touchdown, Garrett Wilson.
By the way, I think that's a great bet because of what you just said. Think of this. He's going to be singled up because that's the way Brian Flores.
That too.
There's not going to be safety over the top. All this talk about cover twos and all that. Flores is bringing pressure against old man Rodgers. And if Rodgers gets the ball out, Garrett's got one guy to beat and he can take it to the house. I think it's a really good play. In this economy, you're going to be stunned when you hear this from me because you know me. I can't believe you're only laying 2.5 with the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday night against my Dallas Cowboys. Not my Dallas Cowboys, America's team.
Yeah.
Y'all know that I'm not a doctor. Micah ain't playing.
Yeah. Lawrence ain't
Tank
playing.
Lawrence ain't playing.
Yeah.
We got corners off. We got corners off the street playing in Dallas. They should have lost to the Giants last week. And as much respect, and I say this, I love Dak Prescott. I think that guy is playing at a different level than even he's played on. I know everybody's going to go play. It's been the defense that has betrayed Dallas in the biggest spots. Okay. This is, to me, and I'm a little bit surprised how poorly the Steelers played, at least in the opening drive against the Colts last week. I still think this is a top 3 defense in the NFL in Pittsburgh. Prime time in Steel City.
Off a loss.
Terrible towels.
Yeah.
Man, I think Cowboys are in for a rude awakening, and I think everybody's going to be betting the Cowboys because they're like, well, I'm getting points against Justin Fields and the Steelers. Don't even worry about Justin Fields. Look at the defense. I think that defense for Pittsburgh will be the best unit on the field. I'm stunned. I think this is going to be one that we're going to look back on and go, man, that was a layup auto play. Steelers lay the 2.5.
I'm going to segue into trust me. Mine is Pittsburgh minus 2.5.
There it is.
For that exact reason. I like Mike Tomlin off a loss.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sunday Night Football. It's the Steelers. I think it's undervalued, like you said. I think this is a TJ Watt 4-sack strip fumble kind of game. And I think they're going to do enough to take CD out and have Zeke and the Brandon Cooks of the world try to beat you.
And they can't run.
And I just like that they lost the way they did. It was an embarrassing loss. Joe Flacco comes in there and just lights up your defense, which it reminds me of. They did the same shit last year when they played the Texans. Remember they played the Texans and the Texans had 4 offensive linemen out?
No
And you're
problem.
like, oh, dude, the Steelers are a 1-point favorite on the road in Houston with all this. And then they lost by like 3 touchdowns. The next week they came back and won. I'm having deja vu of that same exact scenario. And it was early in the year. So my trust me was the Steelers minus 2.5. And as we wrap up, the toxic one, I'm not touching Bills Texans.
Oh.
It's -1. It's just weird. It's just weird. Usually this would be a spot where I like to back Buffalo coming off a loss in prime time because I think they're a Super Bowl contender. Josh Allen is my MVP. I'm not saying to bet the Texans. I'm not saying to bet the Bills. I think this would be one to just sit back and enjoy. I think there's a lot of other games you could bet on. It's the toxic one of the week. Just stay away.
Trust me, for me, I'm going to give you the Saints Monday night, taking the points. I'd wait. I wouldn't bet it until we get closer and closer because the money's going to come in on the Chiefs. You get 6. I think that the Chiefs are the most fraudulent 4-0 team that we've seen so far. I know they seem to figure out they should have lost last week to the Chargers again. I don't know why Harbs doesn't kick the field goal when it's 10-10. They're down inside the 5, take the leads fourth quarter. By the way, it's not first half, fourth quarter. So I think teams freak out a little bit about playing Kansas City. I think the Saints at 2-2 are pretty good. I know they lost the last couple weeks. I wouldn't be shocked if they go to Kansas City, trust me, and pull the upset.
Whoa, I like this. I don't like backing Mahomes as close to a 6-point favorite.
They're not good in that role.
He's 13-1-1 under a field goal.
What?
Or an underdog.
So, yeah, that's the auto bet. Yeah. If you get at that short number. Big number, take the points.
Oh, man, that playoff run, dude.
Unbelievable.
Just ripped my heart out when he beat Buffalo and then he beat the Ravens. And then I backed him in the Super Bowl, thank God. Sorry, Pat, I learned my lesson, bro. I learned my lesson. Dave, we got a wrap.
Yep.
I want to just ask you about the main event this week in the UFC. We got Roundtree and Pereira. Roundtree trains out of my gym. Syndicate has had a lot of momentum the last couple of months. It's been some good vibes coming out of there. Roundtree is plus 360. Bias aside, I feel like you have to play that.
Last time I was on.
It's a very volatile fight.
Last time I was on with you here in your studio was before UFC 300. And I said, Alex Pereira, the biggest weapon in MMA is that left hook.
Yeah.
Right. And it bore out. And we thought, man, I got to play this against Jamal Hill. We saw what he did with Yuri Prochazka. I think there's a real danger for this one for Alex. And everybody's going, well, where's the danger? Because it's a non-wrestler, right? Khalil's not going to wrestle. But this is going to be who gets that left hook home first.
Yep.
I really do think so. And if Khalil's got some speed to his punches and he's got real power.
Yeah.
And now this is the first time that I think Alex is fighting a bigger guy.
And a guy that can match him in power.
At 205.
Yep.
From moving up from 85. This is the first time that power is really going to be on display. You can only back the dog side at that point.
No, for sure. Pereira's minus.
Somebody's getting knocked out.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's going to sleep.
Someone is dying within 3 rounds. That's the handicap.
No question about it.
That's the handicap. Dave, this was awesome, man. I'm looking forward to having you on again, as always. And just to pull the curtain back, you always do right by me. I appreciate it so much. I hit you up late last night, and I was like, yo, are you free? And you're like, for you? Yes.
Dude, I'll never say no. If I got the time for you, you know I'll be here.
And that means a lot to me, man. That means a lot to me. Let the people know where they could find you and all the stuff you're working on.
If you can, don't take yourself too seriously. Hit me up on X at D-Raw Sports. Have a lot of fun on there. I love to poke the bears, have a good time, but I do not take myself too seriously there. Certainly at VSIN, you can always check me out on VSIN. Also do a Bet US show with Matty Betts, our buddy Matty,
Yep.
and Kyle Proviance every Friday on Bet US, talking all the fights. We break down all the fights each and every week. So 2 o'clock Eastern on those platforms. I'd urge you to check out their show. Kind of like this. It's a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah. Shouts to Matty, man. And shouts to you, Dave, always coming on and always giving us some good insight and good vibes, man. The best sports betting vibe on the planet. As far as I go, all things Veterans Minimum or at Veterans Minimum. At Nick Day as 10 as you can find me. And we'll catch you guys next time.
In his element, I'm a gold medalist, bronze like your medal is. So many deer in headlights, but it's bedtime. Hear that supper bell, main course, be the venison.
Dab. Most dangerous game. Either kill or be killed.